let's see, exercise 29. Solve the following, giving answers to 2 decimal places where necessary. Okay, let's say I'm using completing the square to solve all the questions that you circle here. So I start from question 15. 2x squared minus 7x minus 15 equal to 0. Actually, there are more than one way to do it. So completing the square is one of the way. So let's see how we do it. Okay. So when we do completing the square, we have to get rid of the 2 in front. So we have to divide by 2. So we get x squared, 7 over 2, 15 over 2 equal to 0. Okay, we get rid of the first term coefficient. So now we have x squared already. And again, we look at these second term coefficients. And we have to divide by 2 and we square it. Okay, so minus 7 over 2, you divide by 2, then you square it. So it's equal to minus 7 over 2 times 1 over 2, then you square it, which is equal to minus 7 over 4, and you square it, which is 49 over 16. So the 49 over 16 is the term that you need to add to make perfect square happens to the first 3 terms. So we add x squared minus 7 over 2x. We add the 49 over 16 at the third position, and the fourth position we minus. And then we put back the last term just now. Okay. So now we have the first 3 term as a perfect square. It's something that we can factorize straight away to x. Yeah, yeah. Oh, you mean these three, right? Yeah. Oh, perfect square, let's say example. I start from the more basic one. Perfect square is like 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. And these are perfect square. So perfect square, you can change it to something square, something square, something square, and something square. And these are perfect square. Okay. So perfect square, you can change it to something square. And if we applied it here, these 3, I call it perfect square because you can change it to something square. So that's why we call that perfect square. Okay, so yeah. To change that to perfect square, we take these and divide by 2. It's a shortcut to do it actually. So we take that and divide by 2, where we have done it on the right hand side here. We divide by 2, we get negative 7 over 4. So that is negative 7 over 4, then you square. So that is what I mean. These 3 terms are perfect square. It means you can change it to something square. So this one, something square. Now for the last 2 terms, we just press calculator. Minus 49 over 16, minus 15 over 2. So we get minus 169 over 16. Okay, so we get something like this. And if the question is asking completing the square, we can stop here already. But now the question wants us to solve. Solve means you have to continue doing this until you get the values of x. Okay, and you have to give your answer to 2 decimal places. Okay, now let's see how we continue. X minus 7 over 4 square. Okay, so these are the extra steps compared to just now when we do completing the square. We just stop at this line. Now the extra step will be like this. We bring the minus 169 over 16 to the right. Bring this to the right. Okay, so let me draw an arrow here. So we bring this one to the right. It is minus 169 over 16. When you bring it to the right, it becomes plus 169 over 16. And now the next step is we bring the square. So we bring the square over. When you bring the square over, that means it will become plus minus square root. Plus minus square root. So x minus 7 over 4. Okay, so the square no more already. I have to bring it over to the other side. So it should become plus minus square root 169 over 16. So sometimes you can square root this perfectly, and sometimes it will become a decimal. So for this case, I can square root this perfectly. It is just 13 over 4. So x minus 7 over 4 equal to plus minus 13 over 4. And then you can do x minus 7 over 4 equal to 13 over 4. There are two values that can be taken. One is positive 13 over 4. Another one is negative 13 over 4. Okay, so I write 2 times. The second time I use minus 13 over 4. Then after that, you bring minus 7 over 4 to the right. It becomes plus 13 over 4 plus 7 over 4. So we get 5. And likewise for this, minus 13 over 4 plus 7 over 4. So we get negative 3 over 2. So this is one of the way to do it, by using completing the square. Yeah, one of the way to do it. So if you don't want this way, right, there is there I mean there are many ways to do it. So one of the way is factorizing. Okay, so just for your information, if you are not planning to use completing the square, then you can try factorizing, or you can try the quadratic formula, which is x equal to minus b plus minus b square minus 4ac square root over 2a. So you can use two other ways to handle it also. Okay, so let's say I just focus on completing the square and I end up with this answer. Okay, now let's move on. Next one, question 19. Question 19. Okay. 3x squared plus 25x plus 8 equal to 0. So if we are doing completing the square, yeah. Are you trying to ask me anything? Oh, okay. So let's say, oh, okay. So if it's okay, then I just continue. Divide by 3. So we get x squared, and then 25 over 3x, and then 8 over 3 equal to 0. Okay, so again, if we are doing completing the square to solve it, we need to focus on 25 over 3. 25 over 3. So where we have to take that value and divide by 2 and you square it. Okay, so we will get 25 over 6 square. So x square plus 25 over 3x. Okay, we have to add. So add what? We square this, we get 625 over 36. So we have to add 625 over 36 minus 625 over 36 plus 8 over 3 equal to 0. So the first three term is again a perfect square. So we can do x plus 25 over 6 to change it to a square. And then the last two term we press calculator. So we get minus 529 over 36. Yeah. So if the question is asking completing the square alone, when we reach here, we have done. But now the question is asking solving. So we need to do extra steps as in the previous question. So where you can see just now, I bring the fraction to the right, and from negative it becomes positive. Then I have to square root and so on. So now I do the same here. X plus 25 over 6 square. So I bring the fraction to the right. I get 529 over 36. So in the next step, I'm going to bring the square over. It becomes plus minus square root. So I get something like this. If you compare to just now, right? Just now, we are able to square root the fractions to change it to 13 over 4. So as you can see up there, can change it to 13 over 4. Is fractions that you can square root perfectly. But now, for this one, when you square root these, you will get a decimal number that you can't change it to a fraction. So let's see. 529 over 36. When you square root, oh, can also. We can square root this also. Okay, this is actually 23 over 6. 23 over 6. Okay, so in that case, we can separate them to 25 over 6 equal to 23 over 6, or 25 over 6 equal to minus 23 over 6. Okay, we have plus and minus here. So we just move on. 23 over 6 minus 25 over 6. So this is minus 1 over 3. And this is minus 8. Okay, so what can I say is we do completing the square as a practice. But when I see the answer is in this form, so I know, in fact, the fastest way to do it is factorization. Okay, factorization. Factorization is the fastest way. So it's something like this. This one I just put in black color. If you have this and you do factorization, then it will end up with 3x plus 1x minus 8 equal to 0. Then 3x plus 1 equal to 0. X minus 8 equal to 0. X equal to minus 1 over 3. X equal to 8. This working are acceptable also, and it's shorter. Okay, it's shorter. It's factorization. Okay, so let's move on. Number 20. Okay, number 20. 3y squared minus 2y minus 5 equal to 0. Okay, so by the way, are you familiar with factorization? You remember anything on factorization? Do you remember factorization? Like here, the black color one? Yeah. Yeah. Ah, yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, true. Okay, there are a few ways to do it, the factorization. Okay, so, uh, yes, true. Okay, so if like that, let's say for question 20, let's say this time I don't want to use completing the square. You know, completing the square is so long, but end up with, if I do factorization, it is so short. So why not we we try using factorization? If it doesn't work, then we use completing the square. That will be the better way actually. Okay, so the cross method will be like this. Huh? So let's do it here. We think of what multiply with what to get 3y squared. So 3y multiply with y, then you will get 3y squared. Okay. Now you think of what numbers multiply and get minus 5. Get minus 5. So there are many choices. One of the way is we do minus 5 and 1. You know, minus 5 multiply with 1, we get minus 5. Okay, now we cross. We cross. Okay, so when you cross, we want to check whether we can get the middle one or not. So y multiply with minus 5, we get minus 5y. And 3y multiply with 1, we get 3y. And then you add these up. When you add this up, minus 5y plus 3y, you get minus 2y. So if you get the second term, the minus 2y in the middle, if you get that, that means factorization work. So if factorization work, then you take it in this way and in this way. So the two factors are 3y minus 5 and y plus 1 equal to 0. So if you are using this way, then we can avoid completing the square. Okay, so completing the square is good to be used if you cannot factorize. So here we can factorize, so we just stick to this method. Okay, then we get yeah, true. Okay, so you can try out on your own one. So yeah, so I just settle out everything first. Later you can try it again when necessary. Okay, so this is question 20. And now let's see question 21. Question 21. 2y squared minus 5y plus 1 equal to 0. Okay, so I can see that this cannot be factorized. Okay, cannot be factorized. So if cannot factorize, of course, how we know we cannot factorize? You have to try it out to know, to find it. Okay, so uh, cannot factorize this one. I just put a mark here. Cannot factorize, and we have to use completing the square or quadratics formula. So let's say I use completing the square. So I divide by 2, I get y squared 5 over 2y 1 over 2. Okay, now I focus on this. I divide by 2 minus 5 over 2 divided by 2, and I square it, so it becomes minus 5 over 4. I square it, become 25 over 16. Okay, so I have to add this to make the quadratics a perfect square. So I add 25 over 16 and I minus 25 over 16. So the first three terms will become a perfect square. So I can change it to something square. Y minus. Okay, so like what I mentioned before, we have to take this and divide by 2, which is minus 5 over 4. So minus 5 over 4 will stay here, then square. That is how we change the first three terms to something square. And the last two terms is going to be minus 25 over 16 plus half. So it becomes minus 17 over 16. And you bring 17 over 16 to the right. And then the next step is you square root together with plus minus. Okay. And it will become a decimal. This one we have no choice. It has to become a decimal. So I will put 4 decimal first. 1.0308. Later I will round off to 2 decimal. The question required 2 decimal. So I separate them into 2 parts. The positive one or the negative one, as we have plus minus there. So the negative one, 1.0308. Okay, then we can find the y. I shift 5 over 4 to the right. So 2.2808. I round off to 2 decimal places. Okay, likewise, here I do the same. Okay, so I get 0.2192, and now I round off to 2 decimal place, 0.22. Okay, so this is the questions where we cannot factorize and we have to use completing the square. Compared to the previous question, right? This one you can factorize, question 20. And question 19 you can factorize also, I have shown you. Even question 15, we can factorize also. So like something like this, you can factorize it to x minus 5, 2x plus 3 equal to 0. Then you will get x equal to 5, x equal to minus 3 over 2. So the fastest way is factorization for 15. 19, fastest way is factorization. Question 20, the fastest way is factorization. And question 21, cannot factorize. No way, no matter how hard you try, we can't factorize it. So we have to use completing the square or quadratic formula. Yeah, so